Hello and welcome to Analysing Avatar The Last Airbender. I am Dan, and as always, I am joined by Chris Billingham, the late Airbender himself. Woo, give it up for Chris, everyone.
Why you keep giving me like? Yeah, you introduce me every week like a guest. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a very big introduction you've been doing the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think of it as more like a guest. It's like, it's like, he's here. I'm excited about it. It's Chris, everyone. Woo.
No, I appreciate that, but I just think, one, I don't know how excited the audience are. Two, I feel bad because I'm certainly not that excited to speak to you as you are to speak to me. So, there's a
that's only fair.
Range of
I'm
emotions
definitely
with
more
it.
excited to speak to you than myself, so that makes sense. That tracks.
No, I'm kidding. It's always a pleasure, Dan. Obviously,
Let's be honest, Chris. I may ramble the most because I'm imprecise with my words, but you're the one on the journey. You're the one experiencing Avatar. You are the late Airbender. You're in the title, mate.
I think we're gonna need to depend on your rambling for this episode. I have.
Well,
little to say.
Let's have a chat about that because we just had a little brief exchange before we started recording because I've known Chris for a long time now, many years. I mean, we've been podcasting, forgetting how long we've known each other. We're about to hit our 10-year anniversary of podcasting together. So I'm very familiar with Chris's opinions on things. We've spent a lot of time discussing them. And one thing I know quite consistently is Chris does struggle with dream sequences, episodes that take place within dreams, things that basically aren't real, because while you can learn something about the character in them, the consequences, there's no dramatic tension in a dream, I think, is the issue, if I was to try and sum it up, although I'm sure Chris can speak on this himself later, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that's kind of my shitty summary of it. So we have this episode, which for those of you who don't remember, is the episode in which we start 4 days away from the invasion, into the Fire Nation, where they're going to take advantage of the eclipse to try and take out the Fire Lord. Aang is getting all anxiety-ridden and stressed about the whole thing, and he starts to have nightmares, which stop him from sleeping, and the less he sleeps, the weirder he gets, the more the dreams start to blend into reality, and the episode starts to devolve into absolute chaos, until... And this is where we get to my problem with the episode. They just go, "Don't worry, Aang, we think you're capable." And he goes, "You do?" And then just sleeps like a baby. Doesn't make any sense. I hate it. I hate the ending. But I think the rest of the episode is excellent, very funny and very enjoyable. The side plot is the story where Zuko hears about a war meeting that's happening, and having the last one he attended to led to his face getting burnt off. He's a bit like, "Oh, I've not been invited. I guess I'm not part of it still. I've not come as far as I thought." It turns out he was expected to be there. Just it was so obvious no one bothered to invite him, and his dad, the Fire Lord, is like, "Well, I'm not even going to start until my son's here," which is very prideful moment for Zuko. But it kind of turns it turns to ash in his mouth, to borrow that phrase, because it basically afterwards he realizes that he's become the perfect prince that his dad always wanted him to be. But that's actually, even though he always thought he wanted to be that, it's not actually who he is. So that's the Zuko plot. That's the Aang plot. So yeah, knowing, Chris, your feelings on anything that has extensive dream sequences, I've got to make the assumption that this is definitely not your favorite episode of this show.
That assumption is wrong. I have very little opinion on this episode. I didn't. So whenever it's backed up by character stuff, I really am more lenient. Sorry, Jess has just quietly entered the room, seemingly trying to be subtle, but you're right.
I was looking for your bin. I was trying to
the bin.
Just get your bin.
The bin's under the desk. There we go. Nice, sweet. That sounded really patronising, didn't it? There you go. I didn't mean for that to be the case. I look like an arse now. The bad thing about that moment, Dan, is however I react, fundamentally, Jess has come in to empty the bins. I'm going to look like an arse either way, Because it looks like I'm chatting to you about a cartoon.
It's like you're having a grand old time chatting about your favorite cartoon, and you've got your girlfriend running around the house like a maid, cleaning up the bins, picking up the bins. That's how that's coming across, no matter what the truth is,
and no matter how I try and defend it. I can't defend it. That's not the case, obviously, but.
No, I can attest to having stayed at your house, knowing you two for a while, a long time. That is definitely not what's happening.
No.
At least not in public, not in front of my eyes.
No.
Then maybe there's a secret like gun pointed at Jess all the time that I don't know about. But that's not been my experience. Maybe it's like when when they let people visit North Korea and they only get to see very specific bits that have been sort of dressed to look like everything's fine. Like they've got like fake storefronts that are full of food for tourists to see, because obviously the big rumor is that there's a huge amount of like poverty and lack of food in North Korea. But when they let tourists in, they show them a bit where there's like where they've made it look like that's what I imagine your house is like now. Like I'm walking in and you're just showing me certain parts. Like I'm not allowed to go near certain rooms.
Don't get me wrong, she is doing all the housework right now as well as the bins, but I've not forced her to. Is my point.
Oh dear.
The more it can relate to characters, the more I am less adverse to that stuff. Also, the more it's what I really don't like is when this is an episode set in a completely alternative reality. I don't know why the Friends one gets a pass. I actually defend the Friends one, even though a lot of people hate that episode. But
no, I think the Friends one is a good example of it, because it has its own stakes, because it's a 2-part episode, and inside of the alternate reality, they create dramatic tension for those versions of the characters.
And it's a what-if story, which is different to we're going to set this entire episode in a dream reality. So it's like, what if different decisions were made? So the fun of the Friends ones is, they all end up in pretty much this. They all end up in the same position anyway. Chandler ends up with Monica. Phoebe's quit her job. All of that stuff happens regardless. The inevitability of it. It's the same reason What If by Disney Plus is appealing. Boy Meets World randomly doing an episode set in the 50s doesn't have the same impact necessarily, is kind of the thing. So this obviously always cuts back to... Do you know what I mean? It's not like I hated Scrubs. And this is almost Scrubs level of the dream sequences are a bit longer, but it's always cutting back to the main thing that's going on. And the dream sequences are incredibly entertaining. If I had to pick a side, I'd pick I like this episode because Momo facing off with Appa is stunning. It's a really amusing, really funny sequence. The reversal at the end, no, Fire Lord, you're not wearing any pants. It's all really good, amusing stuff. The reason I'm like, you'll have to do some rambling is because I don't have much more than... Yeah, it's really good, really enjoyable. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those classic episodes where it's like, yeah, cool, that was good. What's next? Except we can't do that. We've got to talk about it for 45 minutes. And also my other big thing is, isn't it nice that Aang's finally decided to give a fuck? I mean, this has been coming for a while, dude. It did feel a bit like the writers were going... Yeah, we probably should have had him. We should have had a bit more concern, shouldn't we? You know what? Let's do all the... I don't know why Avatar is written by a bunch of... not by a bunch of cockneys, but by a bunch of stereotypical cockneys. But yeah, we should have had him concerned all along, shouldn't we? So, I don't know what, we'll cram it all in... we'll cram it all in one episode. Yeah, we'll do that.
I love these characters you've invented.
We better do it.
Mate, you've written any new Avatar episodes lately? Yeah, mate, I've got this great one where he has a dream and Appa and Momo have a fight. Oh, mate, that sounds sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. I'm inclined to agree that this isn't the deepest episode. I think it stands... It kind of... validates its existence by being deeply entertaining, and that's not always enough. I think there have been episodes in the past we've said this was entertaining, but what an opportunity missed to do this or do that, or was this a waste of time? But I think this does enough for the characters and for the characters' sort of situation that it like justifies its own existence. Also, so it's character stuff plus like really entertaining with the visuals, and also I love the way this episode sort of has this whole idea of like at the beginning the dreams are really separate from reality. Like he's he goes to sleep. There is a minute segment that is specifically inside of the dream, and he wakes up. But as he decides, I can't sleep, I'm not gonna sleep, the dreams start blending with reality, and scenes that seem like they're going to be normal scenes suddenly turn really weird. And that, as that begins to happen, that's a really fun idea. So I think there's a few different reasons like this episode has a ton of merit. I do think its conclusion is completely broken, but we'll come back to that. So in terms of the Aang stuff, to reference to what you were talking about, I actually think it was a choice. I could be wrong. It's always hard to predict what's a choice and what's like happy accident. But I think kids do this. I think grown-ups do this. Putting something off until they have to think about it. We all had at least one project at uni we put off until like very close to the deadline and then panicked about, right? To me, Aang being the age he is you can read
I'm sorry,
this.
I'm just laughing because I mean no one that I know more so than you, Dan. But carry on. Put off a project so long, he didn't do it and had to redo the year. Sorry, it's not funny.
Well, that was it. Yeah, that was a whole thing. I don't want to go into that, but yeah,
I think we do. We talk about
true.
it on another podcast somewhere. So that, yeah, you don't have to.
Yeah, we do. Oh yeah, but just because I feel like we've left that with too little context. Very briefly, when I was in uni, there's a project that was sort of like an underpinning project to the year that they sort of told you about at the beginning of the year and then did like a reminder or two. I just completely forgot it existed. And then they apparently got in touch with me in the summer to say, hey, you missed this one piece of your course. If you do it now, it's fine. You'll carry on into your next year. We can't pass you if you don't, though. I never got that letter that they apparently sent. So I turned up to my uni, ready to start my second year, and was basically told, no, you technically failed. So then I had to wait a whole year while I did that one unit from the previous year I'd missed, and it was a piddly like 1,000-word essay that held me back a year, which is absolutely insane. To
On
this
reflection,
day, I think
though, would you do anything different?
Well, I mean, missing it originally was just an accident, and I had no control over what I did or didn't remember. Missing it this summer was their fault. They did the letter went missing or never got sent. So I don't know.
I mean, like it all because you had an.
If I could step in a portal and jump out to me in that year and go, hey, don't forget that piece because they're not going to remind you enough, and then you're going to be in trouble.
I don't think you would.
No, I don't think I would, because I think if that hadn't happened, I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't have met you. This podcast wouldn't exist.
And I don't want to put it all on me and the resulting podcast and friendship, but in addition to that, I think you had a much better time all round in our year than in the year you were in at the time.
Yes. So I was in my original sort of class of the people that started the year I started, that I then didn't continue with because I essentially got pushed back a year. Because then they went into third year as I started my second with you. That group, I mean, I don't want to put too fine a point in it. There was a lot of people they weren't my kind of people. I'm not going to disparage in any way, but we did not gel as a group. And I did struggle that first year, whereas I had a lot more people that I got on with better in my second attempt. But anyway, that's a whole
we've veered off.
Ridiculous. You know what's amazing though? What's amazing to now is every time I think about that. Well, not that it comes up very often, but every time it comes up, I still cannot believe I just let them get away with it. How did a 1,000-word essay hold me back a year? What I should have done was appeal the decision and say, I could write you a 1,000-word essay to fulfill that criteria. Why am I losing a year of my life to this random... And it wasn't even a proper course one. It was the personal development thing. It was like an essay about what you want to get out of the year. It was just some side project that they give you. It was
literally
insane.
could have been done. It literally could have been done that year and like. Yeah, no, you're right. I think if it had been pushed, if you'd have been like, no, I want to speak to the the dean of the university, if there's an equivalent in the UK, I'd feel like
I just sort of
would have relented. Yeah,
I just sort of accepted it and went, oh, I guess that's the situation. But like, as a grown up now, as an adult, I'm like, fucking no, that's insane. Why did I let them do that? It was their fault. I didn't get the letter reminding me. Like, fuck off, no. So yeah, but anyway, it worked out for the best, Chris. Let's move on. But I don't even know what I was saying. Oh, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, so people putting off projects. So, a different situation, actually, because, you sort of said, well, you want to talk for that now. I didn't put off that project. I literally forgot it existed. It's a very different thing. So in this story, like, you've got, Aang, who is, 12 at this point? Like, yeah, I can imagine that he's, they've been having these little adventures or whatever. In a weird way, it almost justifies the jaunts that have been the last few episodes, He's not wanted to think about. And again, I could be reading into this, and it could be just sloppy writing, where they suddenly went, oh yeah, he should feel a bit anxious about this situation. There's a lot of pressure. Instead of embedding it, I guess we'll try to do an episode focused on it. But for me, the way it ends up reading, and I hope this was the intention, because this is how I read it, it was that they kind of said, well, yeah, he would be... It's so playing on his mind that he's pushed it down. He's intentionally forgetting about it, doing that childhood thing that I think everyone does, where that they make their problems sort of like for another day, and then it all piles in at you in one moment, and that is what this episode is and what this episode reflects. So I think from a character perspective, what they do with Aang in this episode is really good. I like it a lot. I think, while the dreams themselves don't give us any deep subconscious stuff other than just the anxiety for that fight, they're all very entertaining. But I think on a grander scheme, the fact he's having the dreams, the situation he's in where he's so stressed he's having nightmares, and then the nightmares are stopping him from sleeping and all that, and he's like getting up in the middle of the night and being like, I need to train, I'm not ready, all that anxiety that he's feeling, that is very believable to me. It feels very right for the character. I'm on board with all of that. My criticism, and I guess there are two, because one is they could have maybe embedded some of that stuff into the content of the dreams a bit better. The dreams are really just an excuse for silly, weird stuff to happen mostly, and that's fine. And let me tell you, as you point out, Chris, that no fire lord, you're not wearing any pants is one of the greatest lines in the entire show, no doubt. No question. It's one of the ones me and Nadia quoted each other the absolute most. It's so much fun. It's a great line.
Yeah, it's
but
brilliant.
And they don't really use the dreams to tell us more about where Aang's anxiety is at, other than the surface level he is feeling that anxiety,
Yeah.
So I guess that's one criticism.
You know what?
I have got a bigger one, but we'll get to that after you.
Yeah, we'll come to that.
I'll let you talk for a bit, because I'm rambling.
You know what? I agree with you there, but I give it a slight pass for that. And you know why I give it a pass for that, Dan? Because who's basically... Steven Universe has fucked at any cartoon I watch now that deals with any form of anxiety or big kind of mental health issues, because I am completely unfairly going to sit there, as I did watching this episode, and go, it's good, but it's not as good as Steven Universe handled that kind of stuff, and it isn't. But it's a ton of fun. I think there's actually two major problems. One, like you say, it resolves itself incredibly quickly. We'll talk about that in more detail. And actually, I think the Zuko of it all gets a bit sidelined. Like the fact that we don't see the meeting, it kind of feels like if we didn't have time for that, maybe we shouldn't have done this plot at all, or we should have just toned down some of the dream stuff to make a bit more time for Zuko.
Did you really want to see the meeting?
To some degree, I think it's a bit weird. What
would you have gotten out of it? Like, the idea was that he sat there and was silent and didn't do anything.
Just a 10-second clip, like the Fire Lord's talking, and we just hear "Hello, darkness, my old friend," and it zooms in on Zuko or something. Just, I mean, obviously not that, but an equivalent of, yeah, why not? The whole episode is about this meeting, whether he's going to attend the meeting, whether he should attend the meeting, whether he wants him in the meeting. The notion of seeing that look of on Zuko's face of shit. Maybe this isn't me. Maybe this isn't who I want to be. Yeah, I'd like to have seen that. I mean, you could make an argument that would have been more nuanced than him then telling us what his feelings were. Why don't we see it? Why don't we, have a bit of subtlety rather than him literally telling someone how he's feeling?
Yeah, I guess, but I just don't know if you could So what I found powerful about what happens with Zuko here is it's a different realization to previous ones he's had. It's a new revelation for him, and a really important one, which is that this whole time he feels like he's been torn between two people that he is. What he's realized here is far more complicated than that. What he's realized is he's torn between the person he wants to be and the person his father wants to be, and he's never put that together before. He's always assumed he wanted both, that he wanted to be these two people, and that's why he was so torn. The realization that his father has this idea of who he should be, and he's been striving for that, not for himself, but for his dad. I don't know if you can communicate with, a shot of him looking a bit miserable while his dad talks about it, with, sound of silence playing in the background,
The writers were sat there.
Yeah, I'm not sure that would have done it for me in terms of because that's a big shift for Zuko, I think, in terms of his growth.
That's fair. The writers were sat there. Dino, what's that song? Sound of what's it? We put that on. We're zooming on Zuko. We'll whack on Sound of Silence.
And we'll whack on a narration. Hi, I'm Zuko. That's me. You might be wondering how I got into this situation.
Yeah. We'll do that. And then afterwards, we'll have him walk up some apples and pears. What? I mean the stairs. Anyway.
I love these characters.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. That's sort of
because unless you can, because I don't think the actual meeting is what's relevant to me. But unless you can think of a way to get that idea across in the meeting, and I'm sure there is a way to do that. I'm sure if you sat down and brainstormed for so long, you'd be able to figure out a way to do it. But for me, the important thing was that realization. I just don't know how you visually communicate that, because it's actually a surprisingly complex idea, and this, the one thing that Steven Universe had as an advantage was that they often would give the characters powers related to their emotional state, so you could physically explore their emotional state visually by demonstrating through what they were able to do, and what they were choosing to do and what not to do, like Pearl choosing, not to use her ability to shapeshift, was a big clue to her emotional state. Lapis's powers, sort of the way they worked and stuff, had a big impact on what you were learning about her. I guess so Steven Universe was often able to tie their emotional state and their feelings to the plot in ways this show doesn't quite have that advantage, because that is the advantage of something that's ostensibly heavy science fiction. Then again, they've got powers in this, I suppose. They could have maybe tied the things together more. It's not like a show void of supernatural elements, is it? So I don't know.
Maybe, but again, who are we? I think the episode's just having fun, isn't it? And I think that's fine. Because I really, a long, however many minutes discussion to kind of say it, but yes, it's got a lot of things I would usually not like, but not so much that I think it was a problem. And actually, the entertainment factor alone, I can't express enough how funny I found Appa facing off with Momo. It's just really good. And they didn't do, what I liked as well, is often what shows doing dream episodes do, is that really fucking played out. Is it a dream or is it reality? You think this is real and then they wake up. I'm so glad they didn't do that. Fucking don't like that, and glad we didn't get that.
Yeah, so they do have moments that seem real devolve into dreams, but the point of that is just that Aang is lost as to what's real and what's a dream anymore. They're not trying to trick you, the audience. It's not like a gag where that's the reveal. It's just that Aang's lost his ability to define the two. Therefore, you find yourself sometimes confused.
Aang never wakes up from a dream that turns out to also be a dream.
Oh yeah, they don't do that, do they? They avoid that trope altogether.
Which I like them for not doing. Yes, so the Katara kiss, you might think is real and then realise is a dream, but I'm talking very specifically about the, sometimes in dream stuff, anything could be a dream, like literally, even when they've just woken up from a dream. In this, when he wakes up, he's awake. Yeah.
So I guess we need to talk about the main thing for me, Chris, which is, hello darkness, my old friend. They went and really fucked the end.
Look, it's all about friendships. Let's just have them be friends. Yeah, let's do that. All right.
It's a bad ending. It's arguably the worst ending to any episode in the show's run. It's so lazy. It's so slapdash. It doesn't do anything for any of the characters. They literally give him what honestly is one of them. Like, it feels like the episode was being rewritten when they decided, now we'll just make it as it is. Because that ending feels like a placeholder, But Aang, we believe in you. We think you can do it. You do? Great. I'll sleep now. What solution is that? What are we doing here? Anything would have been better. Honestly, anything would have been better. Like, someone reasoning with Aang and saying, oh, well, at the end of you're going to have to fight the Fire Lord regardless. No, you know what would have been better? Actually, would have been Toph and Katara toughening up on Aang and saying, okay, you think you're gonna train yourself into fighting it? Twilight, you've been training, you've not been sleeping. Let's see how well you do. Let's train. And they beat the crap out of him because he's just not with it enough to fight. And they go, see, you need sleep or you won't function. Just go to sleep. And that's better than this. And I don't even like that very much. As an idea, but it's still a fuck ton better than we believe in you. Great, I'll sleep then. What?
Well, especially
what
because
was this whole episode for? It's so fucking lazy.
I don't. Oh yeah, another great joke is the Sokka dressing up as a psychiatrist. That whole montage
that is a great running.
That
joke.
whole montage essentially of them trying different stereotypical things, and them with Avatar world twists and them going wrong was very good.
Yeah, like a massage with rocks, or a steam bath from the waterbender, or the acupuncture with a warthog, hedgehog thing, whatever it is. Yeah,
especially because it's not overt, but they're giving a very much "we support you, we believe in you" vibe for the entire episode. They just don't basically all.
Yeah, which makes it even worse. Yeah, because they're not saying anything they haven't been saying to him from minute one.
Yeah. Completely.
It's just, literally, honestly, anything else. Anything. This is on the list of ways to resolve this storyline, the absolute worst, most dull, most unconvincing ending is the one they chose.
Yeah, completely.
And there's literally no excuse for it. No excuse for it. It is absolutely impossible to imagine you would land on the worst one, but they did. I can't even fathom how they got here. That's why I suspect that maybe this was just rushed out somehow. Maybe this was a last minute write, where they had an extra episode ordered, but they didn't have a plan for it or something, and they had to write this in a weekend or something. I don't know. I don't know. But but that ending is awful on every level, and
it's just not very. It's not very subtle. It's I think the core idea of it is nice and fine. It's a theme of the show, but it's just not executed very nicely, I don't think.
It's executed horribly. It's very dull and it's just so it's just nothing. That's the thing, is it's not a conclusion to the story. It's and then the end. It's the parent trying to get out of reading the book at the end of the night. They're halfway through Harry Potter, and they go, because, I've had to make it Harry Potter, because, take a shot. And they're halfway through. Harry's just learning Quidditch. And then Voldemort showed up and he beat him. The end. Close the book, put it down. Bye! Like, that's, it's exactly what this is. It's just insane. If you don't have an ending for the story, maybe don't tell that story.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. I was going to go on a tirade about how maybe that's how they wrote Cursed Child. Like, someone was telling a story to a child and was like, yeah, and then, I don't know, it's Voldemort's child, yeah, whatever. Like, and they wrote the entire play that way. So that's why I didn't say anything quickly there. Spoilers for the Cursed Child.
It's not very good.
Well, no, I imagine live it's spectacular.
It is very good live.
Yes,
it is very good live.
I imagine live it's absolutely phenomenal.
Nah.
I completely agree, and I think that's also why I feel like I had a problem with the Zuko thing, because it just all felt suddenly so rushed at the end there, and I honestly just think take some stuff away from the dreams, and I don't know, just give it a bit. Because so if we're saying it's execution, Dan, then let's dig into it a bit more. What is a version of that? My question is twofold, Dan. My question is twofold. One, do you agree with me that the core idea is within the theme of the show and actually a good one? And two, if you do agree with that, how could it be executed better?
I think the theme is in the theme of the show, but I don't think it's a good idea as the solution to this story. Because just telling someone, forget your anxiety, you're going to be fine, that's never the solution. That's not going to help. It's insane. Like, that's the problem. It's like, all right, the idea of being supportive of one another is very much in the show's theme, but as the end to this storyline, it just does not function.
But again,
and I don't even think you could execute it in a way that would make it function, because, as you correctly pointed out earlier, they've been doing that the whole time.
I agree with that, but I just can't help but feel again, it's because even in the short time that's gone between this, being made and now, media is representing things like anxiety and stuff like that so much better and with so much more nuance. And yeah, you're right. That's not a solution. But the fact that we know that's not a solution is because we're thinking about the anxiety element of it so much more than I think that, even though the whole thing is about anxiety, even when this was being made, it wouldn't surprise me if this episode was written without words like anxiety being used even. Do you know what I mean? So is one of the reasons we come down on that element because we know it does a disservice to the mental health issue it's portraying, even though when this was made, they probably didn't look at it as portraying a mental health issue.
I think it's a really interesting point, and I think there is an element of that to it, but I think it's actually, for me, much more failure to complete a basic story arc than it is a mental health story specifically. Any story shouldn't be ended this lazily and this quickly. Because stories are about characters like emotionally going from A to B, right? Like, they're completing an arc, right?
This is why I never made it as a writer. I did not realise stories were about characters.
And so the whole story, Aang is in position A, and you want him to get into position B. And he's in position A, and he's in position A, and he's in position A in this story from the first act, the second act, most of the third act, and then at the very end, there are, and I swear this is true, Chris, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines that fix it. Do you want me to read them to you? Please. So Aang has not been convinced nothing has changed. For Aang, he is in the exact same position that he was at the start of the episode, full of anxiety, not sleeping, right? And Katara says, after placing her hand on his shoulder, "Listen to me. You've been training since the day we met. I've seen your progress. You're smart, brave, and strong enough." He goes, "You think so?" And she goes, and then Sokka goes, "We all do. You can do this. You're ready." And Toph goes, "You're the man, Twinkle Toes." And he goes, "Thanks, guys," and goes to sleep. That's it.
Yeah, it's pretty breezy, isn't it?
Fucking breezy. A breeze would blow that over. That's fucking nothing. That's dust in the air. That is bollocks, is what that is. That is barely words. Again, it feels like someone, like, deleted a section of the script or like fell asleep writing it and went, I guess I'll hand it in. Like, honestly, it's so bad. It is inexcusable. I know I said it earlier, but it's not as simple as, mental health issues. Because I agree with all that. It's a really interesting point, and I think you're right. There is an element of, in the modern day context, these sorts of stories do often come across thinner than they should because we're more willing to talk in detail, especially to children, about these issues now. 100% agree with all of that. But I think if this story was about anything else, I'd feel exactly the same about that being the solution. Because it's not a solution. And I swear to God, if one person puts in the comments, "But they made him a nice bed," I'm gonna find out where you live. I'm gonna come to your house and I'm gonna shit on your doorstep.
They did, but it did look comfy.
They did look very comfy. Those
I could work out
whatever
because
they were,
it kind of
sheep creatures would look terrified and cold.
Yeah, I was about to say I couldn't work out what it was made of, but obviously it's made of the sheep. Sorry, of course. That's
which is why they all suddenly were all very sheared and very cold.
Yeah.
So yeah, honestly, that's it, dude. I read you the entire ending.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, that is
Katara
crazy.
says, basically, "I've seen your progress, you're smart, you're brave and strong enough." Aang says, "You think so?" Sokka's like, "Yeah, we all do, you're ready." And Toph just says, "You're the man." And that's it. That's enough to fix it, is it? You don't set up a story like this if you don't have a solution. So yeah, I really hate the ending of this episode, which is a shame because I love a lot of this episode. I love the animation, particularly in the dreams. I love that they got D. Bradley Baker, the guy that does the animal noises for Momo and Appa. He got to do both the voices for when they talked. That was him too. Super fun. Love that. Really enjoy this interpretation of like what Aang's vision of Fire Lord Ozai is, and how it shifts as the episode goes on. I love all the references to anime which we'll talk about in the Triv, but through the different clothes Aang wears throughout the dreams. There's so much to love in this episode. There's many brilliant jokes, like that running gag with Sokka as the thing. There's so much of it, but the story does not function.
Yeah, just to name some other things, the visuals of the sequences where it flashes to like the stairs and then it flashes inside and then that's the dream that leads to him getting covered in ice and then the fire surrounding them. And it feels, like you say, it feels incredibly anime, and I'm sure there's specific references, like you say, that will come up in the Triv. But yeah, it's just, it's beautiful. Like, the episode is a great balance of entertaining, ending aside, entertaining and visually spectacular.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and you know what? I would still say I like this episode, even though that ending is that broken, because it is still really fun, and I love the Zuko stuff. That revelation for Zuko is an underrated point for that character, I think. Like, when people talk about Zuko's sort of character arc from this show, and I'm going to be careful to say, I don't want to tell you where it's going, but like, when people talk about his A and B, this moment never really comes up. Not that I've seen in the discourse. And I think this is huge for Zuko. I think this is absolutely massive for Zuko. And yeah, all right, it's a thin plot line, the whole he doesn't think they want him to the throne room and then he goes and he was wanted, and that's all very, but it's supposed to be thin. It's the B plot. That's allowed. And it is quite a major revelation to throw into such a small plot. And maybe your eagerness to see more of it is really a manifestation of the actual issue of maybe that storyline is bigger than maybe the revelation of that storyline is bigger than the storyline itself, and maybe deserved to be integrated more into a future episode with more time to explore it. Maybe that was the itch you were trying to scratch with that, that idea of maybe wanting to get into the room itself and stuff like that. Maybe you were looking for a way to explore it more. So yeah, it's not perfect, but it's such a huge moment for his character. And when you combine that with all the brilliant jokes and great animation, it's like, well, how can I tell anyone not to, how can I tell anyone this is a bad episode? Has one absolutely glaring flaw, one of the most obvious in the show, single flaws at least. Because usually it's a lot more nuanced than this. It's like, oh, this element kind of works, this doesn't work. It's a lot more greys rather than black and whites. This episode is like, like good. Oh dear Lord, what happened? Good. Like it's such a weird thing that this episode does. That they just ran out of road. Very bizarre. But yeah, I would still say my overall opinion of it, despite the big rant, is positive. So there you go.
Yeah, I would, and a lot of the reasons for that, sort of the key moments of either visual beauty or just real comedy. And also, really, another little side note, probably that would be my last, is I really like the notion of Sokka building Appa armor. Like, I just found that really sweet, and like, although it's slightly undercut by him going, he's your bison. Like, I just love the notion of they've all bonded with him, and they've I just thought that was really sweet.
It's quite a neat thing they've done, because they've embedded that into previous episodes, because they had him say a couple episodes ago, I'm thinking of building Appa some armor, as like a throwaway line, like 2 episodes ago, and I nearly pointed it out, but I was like, it'll come back, so we'll just let that come back when it comes back. But yeah, fully enough, they embedded that in, but they didn't embed in Aang's anxiety, which again makes me think that was a deliberate choice.
What other notes have you got before we triv it up?
So I want to talk a little bit about You're My Forever Girl, because I thought, we were getting the chance to explore Aang's psyche a bit, and we get a glimpse of the confidence he wishes he had, I guess, when he just outright tells Katara how he feels, like, dips her as if they're at the end of a slow dance. Like, it's pretty intense. I mean, I assumed you knew pretty immediately that it was going to turn out to be a dream. That section.
Right away. Which is, I suppose, because it's very odd for me not to have brought up a romance thing, but I think it's because I never once thought that was real. No,
and I don't think the show really tries too hard to convince you otherwise either.
No,
yeah, but your thoughts on it in general, and what that might indicate.
I mean, it's good. It's always good to have overt confirmation. That's what he's feeling. Although we have sort of had that before. The cave of the lovers and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I just didn't really. I guess this is what I mean. We talked before about my reaction to dream sequences. I just didn't have. I was like, okay, cool, but like you say, it's. I guess it's nice that, or I guess it shows us what Aang is feeling about, like you say, confidence and what he wants to say, and maybe what he one day will say. I think it'll be interesting to see how close Katara's reaction is to that, because I imagine her more being sort of. I imagine that moment, if it happens, is going to be a bit more subtle and nervous from both sides. I didn't really have an opinion on it because I knew all along it was a dream sequence.
Yeah, so I think we're actually hitting on when dream sequences don't work for you. Maybe there is a little bit of that in this episode for that scene, because it just feels like, yeah, you're right. It's like you're learning that Aang is interested in Katara.
Yeah.
Did we not already know that? Yeah. What else are we taking from this scene other than that? And I guess you're right. Like it's inconsequential otherwise, because it's not like it tells us anything new.
No, but here's also kind of like everything else is so about the battle with the Fire Lord. You do kind of feel like, in a way, maybe it's not just me personally. That's an example of when I come up against dream sequences. It's an example of when it's the wrong choice, because they're telling a very specific story here about how Aang feels about the battle. And maybe, why he's doing it is tied into that. But do I believe that moment was included to kind of show his nervousness about why he was doing it? No, I believe that moment was included so that the audience that, don't realise it's a dream sequence, which would be fair enough, go, oh my God! And then when they realise it's a dream sequence. It feels like that's why that moment is there. Do I think that's a valid story reason to have that moment there? Not particularly.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
So a couple of other just observations, moments that I think just deserve a little bit of a nod. Some of the weird Zuko being doted over moments were really fun. Like when they offer him a bunch of stuff, he's like, no, and they're like, hot towel? He's like, yeah, I guess, hot towel. And then the one where he has to get in the palanquin, and then they like just take him across the street.
I wondered at first if we were seeing Zuko's dreams. Like if the notion would be that they were both dreaming.
Yeah. But yeah, that whole gag where he's like, no, you can't walk to Maze, and they make him get in the palanquin, and they just take him like 5 steps, and they drop him again. It's great. I love that. I really love that in the second dream, Aang's brain tried to resolve the pants problem by wearing pants that have all chains and stuff. But then he gets the other dream, which, the other dream people is the common one that, the old, test you hadn't studied for thing, which is kind of fun. I really loved Sokka, like the dreams we didn't see that Aang describes. He's like, Sokka, you were being chased by the Fire Nation, and you tried to climb a cliff, and you weren't fast enough, and they got you. So you've got to get better at climbing cliffs. And then Toph, you've got to you can't drink any water because you drink too much water and you need a pee during the invasion, and it gets you killed. And damn your tiny bladder or whatever it is he says. All of that stuff is just so dumb, but so much fun as well. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I did too. A lot of fun.
Any other notes? We've talked about that. Oh, I'm sorry. Having Appa say regarding Momo, I'm sick of this guy always mouthing off is just, mwah, that is beautiful. I also really love the use of Guru Patik. Chakras, because that is like, that's such a big part of his episode. That's all he talks about all episode. The idea that all Aang is really taken away from his time with Guru Patik is the chakras thing.
Yeah,
that was very entertaining. So I think we've covered everything of the notes.
Cool.
Yeah. So I guess we can just hit the triv.
In that case, Dan, let's triv it up.
I'm gonna give you some trivia.
Yeah.
I went with confidence this week because last few weeks I've been losing faith in the give you some trivia bit, and I've wobbled on whether I should continue doing it. But I also did promise I'd milk it till its death. So here we are. You don't have these kind of crises, do you, Chris? You're just like, yeah, I'm gonna say triv it up every week forever. Yeah, and I won't question it.
If anything,
whereas I'm like, oh no, is it bad? Am I doing bad podcasting?
But consistency and stuff, little moments like that are fine. There's not. Yeah, I'm definitely less worried about that than you.
Yeah, I'm being consistent to my character, is what you're saying.
No, I'm just saying. I don't think you need to worry. I think it's all good.
Sure. We'll just go with it. Anyway,
I think if anything, more annoying than doing it every week is us breaking down into this existential conversation about doing it every week.
Yeah, okay, I promise I'll stop doing that. I'll either just carry on doing it with confidence, or I won't do it at all.
Oh, you're going to carry on doing it, because if you don't do it, I'm gonna start a conversation about why you've not done it. So you'll have to carry on doing it.
All right. So, okay, we're going to carry on with, I'm going to give you some trivia. Let's do it, Chris. So, the animal that Toph tries to use on Aang for acupuncture is a baby porcupine, which is the baby version of the animal Appa fought in Appa's Lost Days. The big giant boar porcupine thing where he has all the sort of needles sticking out of him right before the Kyoshi warriors find it and help him. So here we go. Some of the oh my god, I've so many things. Wait, let me get my glasses because I'm going to mispronounce so much stuff. All right, here we go for our world famous segment from Steven Universe. Dan knows a bit about anime, but apparently not enough, and you're all going to moan in the comments. So I'm going to be really careful here to not add any thoughts of my own to any of this stuff about anime. I'm going to read it word for word and move on. Because every time I try to give my own thoughts about anime, it turns out I'm very wrong or I don't understand. And I'm just not dealing with it. So, in Aang's first dream, he is dressed similarly to the character Goku from the Dragon Ball series. A character I'm very familiar with. I mean, no personal thoughts. He's wearing orange clothes, belt, and they've got the large spiky black hair. The rug Aang uses to cover himself when he has no pants on, has the Air Nomad insignia on it. When Ozai does the same, it's the Fire Nation insignia. That one's not about bloody anime. I've been tricked. In the second dream, Aang appears similar to Vash the Stampede. This is characterized by the ear piercings, hairstyle, high collar coat, and chain belt contraption that holds up his pants. The way Aang moves towards Ozai is similar to the running style used in the anime Naruto. I have no opinion on any of this, Chris. Just reading it. It's just facts.
Okay.
In Aang's final dream, his appearance strangely mirrors that of Ozai, most notably in his hairstyle. In Aang's hallucination, when Momo and Ab have a sword battle, Momo is dressed like the comic book character Miyamoto Usagi. Sure. The episode pays homages to several movies such as Lord of the Rings, The Ring, The Grudge, Nightmare on Elm Street, and other fantasy and dream-related movies. I wish this was a bit more specific, because I don't recall any Lord of the Rings references or Grudge references. So if anyone has any specifics, please put them in the comments below. I'm curious. Like many of the fights in Avatar, the fights in this episode, notably Appa and Momo, are influenced heavily by various anime, video games, and movies. Here's a bunch of references. Ozai's Bowser-like appearance and Momo and Appa's fight reflect the anime Bowser-like appearance, and Momo... Oh, is that Bowser? That is Bowser. I said it right the first time. Reflect the anime Samurai Champloo, and I also have influences from Cowboy Bebop and FLCL, such as some of the emotions and actions of Aang, which are reflective of Naota from FLCL. Fuck is FLCL? I feel like I'm going to look that up and it's going to be an anime I'm actually quite familiar with. And I just don't know the acronym. What anime is FLCL?
No, I have no idea.
Oh no, it's literally... That is the name of it. No, I don't know what that is then. It's just called FLCL. Or Fooly Cooly. Cool. Great. Wow, I fall into the trap. I'm already trying to add things to it. No, just read directly, Dan.
I heard it. I heard it happening, and I was amused.
Yep. I can't resist. During Momo and Appa's duel, this is like an endurance test for me. During Momo and Appa's duel in Aang's hallucination, the duel was similar to Obi-Wan Kenobi and General Grievous's duel in Star Wars Episode 3. I can give comment on this one. It's not anime related. Mainly due to Appa using the four swords at once, reminiscent of Grievous's style in which he uses four lightsabers. That is absolutely bang on. I thought that was very cool. I noticed that one.
I didn't notice it, but I'm picturing it now and trying to find it on the episode, and that does sound cool.
Yeah, it's really, because he sort of, the extra arms come out with swords and they all sort of turn round facing side on, which I think is exactly what Grievous does. Momo's design in that sequence is similar to Toshiro Mifune's character in, Kikichio in Seven Samurai. I don't know what any of these words are. Right down to his facial fur being noticeably shaggier, emulating Mifune's trademark 3-day growth beard stubble. Momo's katana positions and kimono design look similar to Jino from Afro Samurai. And so, the thing is, there are words here that I'm very familiar. I know Afro Samurai, and because I'm being so cautious about everything I'm saying, I'm fumbling over them more than I usually do because I'm extra cautious of it. It's terrible.
Yeah.
So we're out of the anime territory now, Chris. You'll
Okay.
be glad to hear. That's a bunch of references, so there you go.
That's cool. I really love it when shows take the opportunity to pay homage, pay tribute. I think that's wicked.
Yeah, I'm glad it's all in there, and I'm glad I mentioned it, because if I didn't mention it, there'd be that comment, oh, I can't believe you didn't mention the FLCL reference. I guarantee that's somewhere in a Twitter thread if I don't say it. I always feel bad when we miss stuff, especially when people are like, it's my favourite thing from the whole show, I can't believe you didn't mention it. There was, the other day, I felt awful. Somebody was like, there's a joke in one of the really early episodes, like the very first King Boomy episode, and apparently there's like someone says something awkward, and then there's like a disembodied cough that like doesn't come from anyone. And that's the joke, like,
That's awesome.
and we never mentioned it, and that's a really funny joke, like an awkward cough that comes from no one. But there was so much to talk about. I make notes. I don't always pick up on everything in that viewing, and then that's that. And then someone was like, literally, it's my favorite joke from the whole show. I was like, I'm so sorry. I just can't remember everything. I'm sorry. Guru Patik's six-armed appearance, holding a guitar-like musical instrument, is reminiscent of the Hindu goddess of knowledge, Saraswati? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Apologies if I'm not. Who is popularly depicted with 6 arms and holding a veng, or a ving. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right either. But, his accent and manner of dress are typical of of Indian Hindu holy men. So there you go. When Zuko passes the gate to go to May's house, one of the fans behind him is wearing an outfit like Toph's. At the beginning of the episode, Aang has a flower in his mouth, which is similar to the wheat or twig Jet usually has in his mouth. Likewise, in the Forever Girl line, Aang says it's referring to the endings of most romantic comedies. I guess that's right. The idea of like, because they've got together and the movie ended, they're together forever, I guess is the notion of that. From the audience's perspective, you don't ever, that relationship will then exist forever unless they do a sequel and break them up, because why not? Or give one of them a heart attack on a Peloton to get them out of the way. Wow, that's it. That'll be a timely reference when people hear this in late March. It's for a TV show that aired 4 or 5 months ago.
It's almost like if there's that many hoops to jump through, maybe the sequel's not the best idea.
Yeah, I think you might be right, Chris. When Toph told Aang to go to sleep, her chibi head that pops up in like that speech bubble is actually a borrowed animation from a short they did called Bending Battle around the time. I guess it was like a web short or something they stuck on Nickelodeon between other shows. Apparently they've had to re-edit it though to make her headband to match the collar that her headband is in season 3 while she's wearing her Fire Nation outfit, because in the original short it was from season 2 and it was the green headband or yellow, I can't remember, Bender colours, so they had to change that. Anything? What is the? I'm not that one. I don't know why that's in here. Oh yeah. So in the dreams, Ozai has the same voice that he normally does, but at this point, Aang has not yet heard him speak. So it's a bit odd because he does know what he looks like. They found a picture of him, but he's not. That's the first time he.
Yeah, I noticed that. It almost took like 3 appearances for me to be confident it was actually Mark Hamill, because I was like, have they got a different actor because Aang's not heard his voice? So I definitely noticed that distortion and thought that was very clever.
Yeah. It is well done. One thing we forgot to talk about actually very quickly: the rock that Aang dresses up like the Philo by putting the picture on it and giving it like fake arms or whatever. Later on, when he dreams that's come to life and is like sort of dancing about, genius. That is just one of my favourite insane visuals from this episode. In one of Aang's dreams, he's wearing his season 1 outfit, and the other one he's wearing his season 2 outfit. Toph wears her season 2 outfit in one of the dreams, and Zuko gets his ponytail back in one of the dreams. But for some reason, Sokka and Katara are always shown wearing their Fire Nation outfits in the dreams.
That is interesting.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. The voices that D. Bradley Baker uses for Momo and Appa in this episode are apparently very similar to the voices he uses for the characters Spider Monkey and Cannonbolt from Ben 10 Alien Force. Who knew?
Nice.
And then finally, the sequel to the greatest trivia we ever had, Chris. I don't know if you recall, a few weeks ago we had the brilliant trivia, the incredible piece of trivia. This is the first of 2 occasions in which we see Azula without makeup. Well, guess what, Chris? This is the second of those 2 appearances where Azula appears without makeup.
I didn't think we'd get there so quickly, Dan, but...
No, I didn't either.
Here we are.
Here we are indeed. All right, so there you go. That's the triv. Some good triv. Sorry I butchered so many pronunciations. I always feel like that Chris must get some satisfaction out of this because Chris can't pronounce, like J.J. Abrams' name. Like he calls him J.J. Abrahams. I'm pretty sure earlier today I heard Chris say the phrase "a scapegoat" instead of scapegoat, which is
I did say that,
pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And Chris will say he brought something when he means he bought something. Yeah, I'm the one who's like fumbling over all the words. Like, you must take some satisfaction in someone else being the fucking idiot who's barely able to speak.
Yeah, I think maybe it's
because traditionally that's a role you take in life.
Yes, oh yeah, like all the time, completely. And it particularly winds, like, I think you and Ronnie are the only two people that have ever pulled me up on the bought thing, and I do that all the time. So there's a certain satisfaction when it's you, because not you really care. And other people wouldn't.
That's a good point. All right, Chris.
I know much better. I was thinking earlier. I don't know why I was thinking about this, but I was thinking about the biggest argument Dan and I ever had, and I'm so much, after doing so many podcasts, I'm so much better equipped to like argue with you now. And I was just thinking, man, part of me wishes, and I don't think we would have done. Part of me wishes we had that argument. Now, it was basically, I won't bore people too much, but it was basically an argument about whether a YouTuber was named one thing or the other. And I knew I was right, and I went, it's categorically this. And it turns out Dan was wrong, and I don't know whether he'll admit it now or whether he's got his own take on it. He may well do. But certainly at the time, it felt like Dan went, fuck, he's right. But we were so emotional. We were so het up by this point that Dan decided to turn the argument into, I was being arrogant when I said I categorically knew, because how could I do that? And I couldn't argue it. Whereas now, I'd just be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, would you?
Because I completely forgotten we'd ever even had that argument. I was thinking of a completely different argument.
I know which one you were thinking of, and I'm...
I can only think of 2 times we've genuinely disagreed, and and it's got a bit shouty, and the other one was the one that jumped to my mind first.
Was the other one, I suspect, if you're going, look, yeah, you were right, and if you take my point about categorically, if the other one is what I think you're thinking of, if you're raising your hands to the argument I've just mentioned and going, yeah, I have to raise my hands to the other one and go, yeah, is the other one the watch thing?
Yes.
Yeah, I have to raise my hand to that and go, yeah, I was in the wrong there.
Yeah.
That argument.
Yeah, I think the thing is, I stand, but I don't think the point I made was invalid. That we were both in a position of not necessarily having the information directly in front of us. So I think the reason it'd be, because I guess once the argument had been settled the first time, it then became how did we get here? That's what I guess it wasn't so much me trying to turn it round, more me trying to analyze like I always do, and being frustrated that it had gone that way, and really just being annoyed that we didn't just look it up straight away.
But
I absolutely hold my hands up that I was wrong 100%. But yeah, the watch thing, should we give context for that? Do you mind if we give context for that?
I'll finish that. I again, would you admit if you'd watched the video previously, you would describe something as oh no, I categorically know. That wasn't an arrogant thing.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, 100% understand what you mean now. But in the moment, it was. I think we were talking about 2 different things. But yeah, no, you're right. You're 100% right. I hold my hands up for sure.
The watch thing, I was a twat. I'll sum that up quite succinctly, Dan. I lost my watch, and we had people over the night before. I irrationally assumed they might have stolen it. And I think Dan's main complaint, which he was absolutely fair on, was that it was my first option. I didn't go, where is it? I've looked here, or maybe I dropped it down the side of the bed, or maybe when I went out earlier, it slipped off my wrist because the catch is broken. I went straight to, maybe the people we had round yesterday are actually thieves. And Dan was absolutely right to pull me up on that.
Yeah. It was so funny because you understandably got defensive and I'll take some fault here as well because I went in hard because that really I was like, are you fucking kidding? I was like, Chris, are you seriously telling me that before you even consider the possibility you've lost your watch and misplaced your watch, you think it's more likely that our friends have stolen your watch.
I
Which,
don't
by
think
the
they
way,
were. I don't think they were
don't
our
think
friends.
was a valuable watch.
I don't think they were our friends, if memory serves. I think they were.
They were friends of a friend, but like that's
Yeah.
they were still the people we relatively the fact that was I was like I'll have to hold my hand up to like make if the way it was handled last time led to it being for that one, Chris. I was the reason it became an argument because I did not let it go. I was like outraged that you jumped to that conclusion before considering that you're a fucking idiot. Because the other thing is, Chris, 9 times out of 10, you're a fucking idiot. So that was what blew my mind about that. We're all fucking idiots. I always assume I'm at fault before anyone else when something like that happens.
Because it's funny. It is actually quite achievable. It's quite an achievement because there are definitely times where we've been annoyed with each other, and it's been clear we've been annoyed with each other, and there have been times where we've had like tense discussions, like about a few like podcast things and stuff like that. But it is quite impressive that in a friendship this long, those are probably the only 2 actual full-on arguments we've ever had. Certainly that I can remember.
Yeah, and they were both they're both over such asinine things.
Oh, they're both ridiculous. Yeah, they are both actually genuinely ridiculous. We debated, we argued over what a YouTuber was called. And me jumping to the conclusion that my watch had been stolen, which I was absolutely wrong for. It was 15 years ago or whatever. I was a bit of a dick. Same thing with the first argument. It was a long time ago. Because as you say, the thing that's incredible about the first argument is like, why didn't we just look it up?
Yeah, it's insane. It's 100% insane. The other thing as well, I would say, and to clarify, when Chris's first argument we mentioned here, they actually happened the other way around. Like the watch thing was one when we were at uni. The other one was much later on.
But still, anyway, even that one would have been at least 8 years ago. Well, 9 years ago.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. 8 years, I think, somewhere around there. But Chris, I want to point something out here. That the other day I put up our review of Arcane on the YouTube channel because a few people had mentioned, and I found that quite funny because a few people were like, "Why haven't you reviewed Arcane?" I was like, "We have on our podcast, Nothing But Static. Have you ever heard of our apparently less successful podcast, Nothing But Static, where we have already reviewed Arcane?" So I snipped that bit out and stuck it on without really double checking what it contained. Because it had been a while. One of the comments was actually let's do this. I'll do this correctly. I'm going to read it word for word. It was 4 words, Chris. It was just great Imagine Dragons review. Because we spent of that 30-minute review, we spent about 10 minutes just talking about Imagine Dragons for no real reason other than they do the theme song for the show Arcane. But my response to that comment, Chris, was 2 reviews for the price of 1. We're nothing if not efficient. So now, with that in mind, Chris, we finished our review of Avatar about 10 minutes ago.
Yes. So, do you have a
normally
question, or are we?
I do, but are we counting that as like answering a question no one asked?
Nah, chuck in a question. We'll see what happens.
Well, so I've sent you a couple. Is there any that you've prepped for, or do you want me to do the Vega one? Because last week after we recorded, I said to Chris, there are 3 that require a little bit of thought. I'll send you them, and that way before we record it, so we can have thought about it a little bit. If you're ready to go on any of those, I can do it. If not, I've got a backup question that is just something we can do on the spot.
Let's do the back because I don't think I'm going to come up with anything else for. I can't remember one of them. Condiments are teased now. I'm not ready for. That needs to be a full on.
We've teased that so many times.
Work.
There's a question that that one of our listeners asked about Chris's favourite condiments, and he's taking it very seriously. And he wants the ranking of the condiments. Chris is taking it very seriously. It's going to be very interesting.
The media to process, I think, is interesting to devote a bit more time to. I think I'm where I am going to end up, but I need to think about it a little bit more in case something better comes up. Because in some ways, I don't really have an answer. But also, I think we're already over, and let's make that a discussion. I think it would be unfair to tell people about our history of arguments and then shortchange that question. So go with the vague one.
vague one. So this is a quick one. It comes from listener Will.
Woo!
And you can too leave a question if you head over to our Patreon. As little as $1 a month gives you access to the Patreon. You get episodes a week early of both this Rewind reviews, and you can ask us questions, which we'll answer at the end of these episodes, extending their length well beyond the actual review. The question that Will asks us this week is, what's your ranking of Batman actors and why? Dear Lord, that's a big question, but I think I can do it pretty quickly. Michael Keaton and everyone else can fuck off. No, that's not fair. No, I think Michael Keaton is the best Batman actor. By far, because I think he's both good in the suit and as Bruce Wayne. I think Christian Bale is really good as Bruce Wayne, but drops the ball as Batman a bit. Where's Rachel? You know, all that stuff. No good. Ben Affleck, I think... Ben Affleck's probably maybe a little better than Bale, but only on the grounds of they give him a more comic-accurate version of the character, which I like. Even though he's in terrible movies, he gets to be more what I think of as Batman. And I also do love that he clearly didn't give a fuck when he came back for Justice League, because in Batman vs Superman he's like mega ripped. Justice League he clearly was just like, build some muscles into the suit, and he's never out of it. It's amazing.
No,
even when they take it off, he's clearly wearing like a rubber muscle suit. It's so good.
The best Affleck for that is the Justice League Snyder cut, where he literally changes shape every like you could just it so takes you out of the movie because you're like, that was a reshoot, because he just looks so good in like the post credit sequence and stuff.
So I think Bale is the better actor. So I guess for me, if I was actually doing it, it's Keaton, Bale, Affleck. Obviously, we haven't seen Robert Pattinson yet. Adam West, unfortunately, gets shortchanged on the fact that he never gets to do anything dramatic, because obviously the whole thing of his was that it was a comedy, and he's very, very good at that. Adam West is an amazing Batman, but for very different reasons. It makes him impossible to rank against the others. And then let's not kid ourselves. You know, Val Kilmer and George Clooney didn't really get a fair shake at it, and that's not their fault. And therefore, I don't think it's fair to rank them amongst the others.
Yeah, I think if you were going to, I'd go Clooney, Kilmer, maybe. I think Clooney has flashes of being a good Bruce Wayne. Then again, I don't remember it well enough, maybe, so I'd have to rewatch Kilmer. Yeah.
Good luck with that.
I think I'd agree maybe with your ranking, although I'd... See, instinctively, I went Bale, Keaton, Affleck, which isn't your ranking. I think because I'd need to maybe re-watch the Keatons, but I remember in my head it feeling slightly more stilted, but not in a bad way, in a kind of comic book accurate way, and in a Bruce Wayne businessman way. I certainly remember his Batman being better. That is absolutely true. I kind of rub up against what you were talking about with the Spider-Men, where, you know, Bale is doing the best acting, maybe, but that doesn't mean he's necessarily the best Batman or the best Bruce Wayne. So I would maybe put Keaton above Bale. And then, Affleck I thought was great. He just wasn't given... Because also, so much of this becomes about... Not that it should, but so much of it becomes about the films.
Which interpretation of the character is better?
Yeah,
in terms of the script.
Because obviously the Dark Knight trilogy is incredible. Like, and you know, in the same way that my heart would put Garfield first, but you go, is that right? When Holland has obviously had such better movies. So I think maybe it is Keaton, but I find it hard to look past the work. And you know, the Dark Knight trilogy, I have my issues with the Dark Knight Rises, but it's the Dark Knight is, you know, arguably a faultless film. So yeah, I think probably head Keaton top, but my instinctive reaction went Bale, Keaton, Affleck, Clooney, Kilmer, and I wouldn't rank West because I haven't seen enough of Adam West, in the same way that I wouldn't include in the rankings the voice actors from the animated shows, because I also haven't seen enough.
Oh, see, now that's a question, because if we're including Kevin Conroy, then it's Keaton, Conroy, and then everyone else.
I think I absolutely think you could include. I couldn't, because I've simply not seen it enough.
Right. Oh, but if I'm allowed to include Conroy, he's second easily, and only and that's close. I love Keaton's Batman, but Conroy is so definitive and so like. No one has ever given Batman the stoicism that Conroy has, the calm, the sort of like. It's always been so like, where is she? It's always very growly and yelly and crazy. Like the calm way that Conroy talks as Batman, like it's just such an interesting approach when all the others are like, I have to strike fear, so I have to be a scary thing. But Conroy's almost scary through just being completely like, just talking sort of straight at everyone. He's not. Yeah, I love that interpretation. He's easily second, maybe even first. But it's hard to get past. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Keaton's tortured, insane version of Wayne is like so iconic. Like all the shots of him brooding in the Batcave are just absolutely incredible. Yeah,
and it's a hard call. If you based it purely on acting ability, it's a really hard call between Bale and Keaton. Like they're both great, and actually, maybe Keaton is doing the better acting. I haven't seen those movies in a while. The one I wish I could throw in, because I just really like him as an actor, but I've never seen Batman Beyond. But I'd really want to check out. I know it's not Bruce Wayne, obviously. It's Terry McGinnis, isn't it? I would love to check out Will Friedle as Terry McGinnis / Batman in Batman Beyond, but I haven't.
Yeah, so I watched that show as a kid, but I never went back to that show, which is interesting. Like I've been back to the original Batman the Animated Series several times over the years because again I love Kevin Conroy, and Kevin Conroy is my Batman through two things now, because obviously he was also voiced Batman in the Arkham games, which I loved. So Kevin Conroy is so intrinsically with that character, and actually Kevin Conroy plays old Bruce Wayne in Batman Beyond, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, I would love to go back to Batman Beyond and see if it's any good, because I loved it as a kid, but taking a superhero, setting him into the future, like that's a fun premise. You know what I mean? Like maybe you probably get this. That's enough to win young Dan over, even if the execution is shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I'm sure it wasn't, because it's still still produced by the same like Bruce Timm and stuff. But yeah, I'd be interested in going back to that actually. But I guess if I went back to that, the way I'd have to do it is I'd feel the need to rewatch, because I'm like a completionist. I'd feel the need to rewatch Batman the Animated Series first.
And isn't
those
the
two
new,
are linked.
Isn't the new Batman Adventures part of that as well?
Yep, and the Batman and Superman Adventures and all that shit. There's like so. Eventually, that world got well out of hand, and I'd feel the need to watch all of it, and that would be the end of my life as we know it, because I'd trapped in the house all day, all night,
Fair,
watching Batman.
Yeah.
Worst ways to spend your life.
Obviously,
to be honest.
True, very true. Catwoman's a lot easier. Obviously, Halle Berry, number one. I am joking.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, because I did quite like Anne Hathaway in that role. Yeah, I thought she was pretty good, but she's going to have some stiff competition, because I'm Zoe Kravitz.
Well, and of course Michelle Pfeiffer as well.
Yeah, I you know what? I'm not. I'm going to say this quietly so no one yells at me. I don't think she's great in that role.
No, I would put Hathaway above her personally.
I just ducked in case someone hit me. Look, I respect that she went for it, and she really did. It's not for me.
Not for you.
That footage of her behind the scenes though, really doing the whip to whip the bottles off the wall is fucking amazing. She worked her arse off for that, no question. So she does deserve the respect for the effort she put into it. It just didn't quite work for me in the end, which is unfortunate. But there you go. So there you go. That's Batman stuff. Thank you for the question, Will. So if you want to ask us a question and derail the podcast, or add an extra 10-15 minutes of nonsense to the end of what is otherwise just a 45-minute Avatar podcast, and confuse everyone when they see it's an hour and 30 and then find out that only half of it is Avatar stuff, feel free to ask that question. We've got, As has been hinted and mentioned, we've got a couple of questions in the tank that we thought needed a bit more prep than just ranking Batman or whatever, or something as important as condiments. So we will come back to those questions in the next couple of episodes. But if you'd like to ask a question, you can do so, as I said earlier, at the Patreon, patreon.com/nothingbutstatic. You can also get us on Twitter. I'm at Dan Doolan. Chris is at C Billingham. If you'd like to complain about the length of the podcast and the lack of Avatar talk for the last 20 minutes of it, then feel free to email us, mail@nothingButStatic.co.uk. I do think that putting it at the back end is the best solution, though, for our rambling, because in the old days, Steven University, we just throw it in anywhere. Like, you'd be quite happy to listen to us talk about Steven Universe, then we'd suddenly just sidebar into like some nonsense for 20 minutes and then come back to Steven University, so you have to listen to it all. At least now people know when they can turn off.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I think that's the better way to do it, is it not? So if you have any thoughts, you can send us them that way. You can also comment on the YouTube channel or subscribe to the YouTube channel or like us on there, and that'll help spread the word as well. You can also, of course, tell a friend, tweet about it, whatever you want to do to share it with others, or just keep listening. We like that too. That's pretty helpful. We enjoy that. And obviously, whatever podcast platform you use probably has some sort of review system. So I would encourage anyone who wants to sort of help with like getting us in front of more ears, then feel free to support us by just giving us a review on that platform, and then that will make that platform show more people. That's everything for this week. So we're coming up now on a two-parter, Chris, which I'm quite excited about. I mean, that's a good question. Oh no, I can't do Avatar chat now because most people have turned off. We won't do that. I was going to ask you a question about what you think where we're going now, because we've essentially that should have been part of this episode to chat, Chris. We've essentially just set up that they're about to face off, and we're halfway through the season structurally.
But there's two things in there. I do get confused by this still. There's the eclipse and then the comet.
Correct.
So, yeah, I assume this is the eclipse, and then at the end, maybe it's the comet. I will say, I'll make it succinct in case anyone has switched off. I do think this episode does do a good job of bridging fun stuff to eclipse quite nicely by, making it a very intense bout of this is how Aang feels.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that. It's like, it feels it's somehow both light and ominous.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% agree. So there you go. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you in a week's time for more. But in the meantime, I have been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And we'll see you in 1 week's time when we sit down to review The Day of Black Sun, Part 1, The Invasion.